Alright, we out here. Hey, hey. So I had the option of doing van life or bus life. And on my first leg of my journey, when I went down south, I decided to do van life. And I'm kind of glad I did. Things to think about if you're considering doing either van life or bus life. Initially, I was thinking that bus life would be the optimal vehicle for, doing my remote life. I figured, it's taller, you can walk around, stand up, you got more space, and you could put more things, you have more things that's available to you, and they could be more readily available too. So, whereas in my van, I have to put things in compartments, I have to, I got my ottoman, I got to put things in my ottoman, they got to be stacked up properly, and everything's not like readily accessible all the time. Like oftentimes you got to go through something to get to something, or you got to move something to like set something up. Like for example now, as you can see in my back seat back here, that little seat back there, that's my table. Or I keep my monitor mount, and I can put my laptop on. And right now it's just kind of turned on the side. And in addition, I got a seat in the way back with this big ottoman here with that has my clothes in it. And if I wanted to, have a seat, sit at my desk and work, I have to take the ottoman down, move the table in place. The monitor is under. I'm giving up too much information. I gotta set my monitor up, and then I gotta move my speaker. It's some setup and movement and motion that has to happen in order for me to get to my stuff. In order for me to get to my stuff. With bus life, you can have everything set up, or you can have it set up in a way where it's a lot easier and more accessible. It seems kind of minor, but it does matter. I like for things to be accessible. So again, I was thinking bus life is it. Something that annoys me about van life is, you always have to be kind of crouched. I'm about 6'2", and I don't like having to crouch down all the time. It's a lot of crawling, crouching, and it's not comfortable. Like no one wants to have to crawl to get to their desk. I feel like it's messing with my posture having to kind of be crouched for most of the time that I'm in the van. Granted, I try to spend most of my day outside the van, but I thought it would be a cool option that, with the bus, you could park up somewhere and you could just be there. You could, work there. You don't have to find coffee shops as often. And you could make your home your home. So those were two of the main things that I was thinking about with, thinking about in terms of why I wanted to do bus life rather than van life. Between amount of stuff I could bring, accessibility of things, and just being able to stand up and not having to crouch. Whenever you're in your vehicle / space. Also, like with the bus, with being able to bring more stuff, I would be more pop-up ready. So if I wanted to do different pop-up events in whatever city, I could have everything that I need to do any type of pop-up that I wanted to. So those being three of the big things that makes me excited to do bus life rather than van life. Now, there's a flip side to it. Especially, and this is just for me. It all depends on what you value and what your purpose of doing your travels. For me, I'm glad I did van life, and I I'll probably continue to do van life, and I'll do some bus life stuff, but it's going to take me some time to get into it. So some of the advantages of van life where bus life don't have the advantage is, and I found this, along the journey. First of all, parking and maneuverability. So with van life, in my van, like it's a regular van. It's a typical vehicle. Like it's just a work van. If I wanted to go to a fast food joint, I could easily go through the drive-thru. Or if I'm driving and I'm going through like a small town, I know that I could navigate through like tight streets, stuff that's a bit off the beaten path. Sometimes you run into like old bridges, like old wooden bridges, and I wouldn't dare even consider driving a bus across some of them. And even some of them, like I have my concerns in the 16, 15 passenger van. So yeah, just being able to maneuver. Like you don't have to like scope it out as much to say, oh, I don't know if I guess I have to find another way around this one. So that makes it a lot easier. Also, like I have to do a bit more research, but they call them way stations. I'm not sure if I have to stop at way stations. Oh my gosh, gas is $2.73, and I just paid. So yeah, way stations. Like in my 16 passenger, I'm on the highway. Bus, I do think I'm supposed to stop at way stations driving my bus. I'll need to verify, and I think it may vary state by state. So that's some bit of homework that I have to do. But yeah, it kind of takes away from the maneuverability of your journeys. And it's interesting. I had a friend who used to live in my building. Who he was a traveler as well, and he did a short stay in the building. And he had a short bus, like it was like maybe 20 passenger or so, but he had a shorter bus. And I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, have you, I asked him questions about his bus life and everything, and asked him if he considered like doing a full-size bus for his journeys. And he said, I believe he said he used to have one. Then he ended up settling on just the smaller one for maneuverability reasons. Like, yeah. So that's the number one thing. He talked about how it's just much easier to move around in a smaller bus, and it's a lot less to worry about. And at first I was thinking, something might have happened, and he just probably lost his big bus, because like, to me it was like a no-brainer. You got a big bus, way more space, why wouldn't you on a big bus? But now, having experienced what I've experienced so far, and having taken the bus on the road for like some short-term stuff, I could see where he was coming from. Second thing, parking and sleeping spots. I combine them two, cut them separate from maneuverability, because parking and sleeping spots sometimes go hand in hand. So parking and sleeping and parking. Parking and sleeping and parking. And in a bus, the sleeping experiences could be better in the bus compared to the van. Because one thing I like about waking up in the morning is waking up in the morning and then being able to kind of stretch out. You can sleep all night, and when you wake up, you want to be able to stretch out. And well, waking up in the van, you don't get that. You gotta. It's a bit of work to get to stretch out. You got. For me, my side door don't work. I gotta fix that. I gotta fix my side door. So if I want to get out of stretches, I gotta like, if I sleep with my clothes off, which I do sometimes, I gotta find my clothes, put some clothes on. A lot of times it's real hot, like especially if I don't put my curtains up. So it's real hot, kind of sticky. Gotta slip my clothes on, which is sort of difficult, not being able to stand up. But you gotta, kind of crawl through the front to get to the door. Then you kind of look both ways so you don't look crazy or completely crazy. And then you step out the car and you get your little walk on or whatever it is. And that just seemed like a lot. I just want to be able to wake up, stretch out a little bit and get on to it my day. But boy, it ain't that easy in the van, I tell you. So, anywho, sleeping in parking. So, from that aspect, yeah, the bus is probably more favorable because you get to stretch out, when you wake up. However, finding that sleeping spot in the bus, I couldn't imagine it being very easy. Like, because even in the van, finding a good sleeping spot is a whole thing. Like, it's the whole thing. And, like, I literally drive around the city for about an hour at least. When I'm new to a city, if I'm driving around a city that I haven't been to, like it usually takes at least an hour for me to find a good sleeping spot. And then I start to optimize that by kind of scoping it out as I'm doing things. So if I get there, say in the daytime, as I'm driving around and getting my day going, I'm thinking about potential sleeping spots as I'm driving through. But a lot of times I get to a city at night, so I have to do the drive through at night. But that's a whole nother post that we'll get to later. Yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, it's a whole job to find a sleeping spot in the van, and it was a struggle sometimes in some cities, and oftentimes I would end up sleeping either in a neighborhood near a public something or in some type of parking lot. And kind of close to a building, because my truck is like a work truck, so I think people assume that it's that company's work truck, so they leave me alone. If you have a bus, it's a huge bus, you don't have as many freedoms, because with the van you could blend in, you could blend in with stuff. It's way easier to kind of blend in with a van, a common work van, in comparison to like a full-size bus, a full-size school bus that's painted all matte black. It draws a lot of attention. When you're not trying to draw attention, it's not positive at all. That's one of the real difficulties there. And also like just parking period. Like if I wanted to, like if I'm going to visit the museum, like unless they have like designated parking for buses, it's tough. Like you have to park. Sometimes you have to park a deal away from where you're trying to go to. Like you can't park a bus downtown in a major city. Not easily. And like a lot of my van life experience is like an urban van life experience. So I'm going to cities, I'm visiting downtown. I'm doing more of an urban van life than the full nature van life type of thing. And that's difficult to park. I've been, fortunate in my van to find good parking spots. Or not, you gotta be patient a little bit, but it's not undoable. A bus, ooh, it's undoable. Have you ever parallel parked a bus? Yeah, good luck. My thought for parking and sleeping spot for bus life, and I guess I should probably do some more kind of scoping around as I'm traveling, like in my van, because I am going to do adventures in my bus. I just have to be ready. Yeah, so they do got like big parking lots. So some big parking lots depending on where you at. Some big parking lots are accepting, others aren't. So my thoughts are rest stops, RV parks, and those are my only ideas or thoughts right now for bus life parking. And then if you're like off the beaten path type of thing, sure, you could probably just kind of find different nooks to park in or to camp out for the night. Campsites, so also. Gas, like some of the truck stop gas stations. And I think part of van life is, understanding your car well enough to where if something happened, you can fix it. Or, you can't, I wouldn't bank on being able to fix everything, but I like to be able to, like, fix most things, that go wrong, if something goes wrong, or at least have an idea of the direction to go. And, like, so my pops, he worked for GM growing up, and we always had GM cars. And oftentimes I was helping work on the cars. So I know a little bit about the cars. And particularly GM cars. Well, I know a bit about cars. Not one of them new electric, I don't know all that. Like they started to do new stuff in there. But give me a 2000, 2005, anything in the 90s, then I open the hood and I know what's going on. Like I pop open the hood and I know what's what. Right? I ain't never really messed with diesel engines, and it's a whole different beast. A whole different beast. Like I've never changed a bus tire. I've never changed bus brakes. They got the whole air brake system, so it's a whole other learning curve for like understanding how your vehicle works, and if something goes wrong, understanding how to troubleshoot. Granted, at a certain level, a vehicle is a vehicle, and for the most part, especially like within the same decade, like they for the most part operate very similarly. That's a bit of a handicap that I have when it comes to bus life. And even when I took my bus out on like a little short stint or a short trip, I ran into some problems. I ended up breaking a belt, and it took me a bit to troubleshoot it, because I haven't, at that point, I haven't like really been into everything yet. So the engine was running hot, and like at first I thought it might have been the coolant. So I went ahead and got some coolant, and sure enough, the coolant reservoir was empty. So I went ahead and filled that up, waited a bit, drove it around, still running hot. Went ahead, filled up the radiator, like put coolant directly into the radiator. And this is all stuff like I didn't know where the radiator was, so I had to, kind of use my brain to find out where, where the radiator cap was, make sure that they had the right reservoir for the coolant, this, that, and another. Drove it around, still running hot. Then I decided to lift up the cage to see the engine, and I saw a bunch of rubber, and then I noticed a little shred where I felt like the belt was supposed to be. It was just like shreds. The belt was completely shredded. It's probably very old. Hasn't had, it sat for a while. Hasn't had a new belt. Been weathered. Been through some winters, some summers, some winters, some summers, some cold winters, some summers. And the belt was shredded. I'd never seen a belt like it before. But luckily I was close to AutoZone, and I was able to, work it out. And another thing, like, as I was working on it and trying to find the right size belt, AutoZone didn't, like, the vehicle didn't register in AutoZone's database, so we just had to kind of guess at what's, the size of the belt. And I learned a few things about, how they label belts. In addition to not having the information about the belt, I look around the bus to find that there's no information around, like there's no belt diagram. Typically your car have a belt diagram that shows how the belt goes, around, goes around everything. I had a tape measure, so I was able to measure, around where the belt goes to get the measurement for it, and I was able to get it going. But anywho, that's not my area of expertise. Granted, by doing it, I'm sure I will learn a lot, and I would develop a whole new skill set with diesel vehicles. That yeah, so that'll be a fun journey. But it'll be maybe a few times where I end up on the side of the road longer than I'd like to be. It is very expensive to tow a bus. So if something happened to where it's like I have to take it to a shop, like that is not the move. Like towing I have AAA to tow my vehicle, but they don't really like to tow buses. And I even got the RV edition of AAA, and they don't tow buses. So it's great for my van because I get like unlimited towings or something like that. I don't know. I got a good thing going for like getting my van towed. But if I have to tow my bus, it's like I am SOL. Another con. I feel like it's gotta be at least $500 just for them to come out there. Because they gotta have one of those big tow trucks, like one of the tow trucks that tow like a truck, like an actual semi-truck. And you hear people say that those things don't leave the yard for less than $500. But yeah, lastly, you got just overall costs, like an expenses. Like the van is way cheaper than the bus. Like from starting with gas, so I haven't calculated the miles per gallon that I get on the bus. I know I get about 15 miles per gallon in the van, which is a bit more solid than I thought. Like I thought I'd be around 12, and that's highway miles. I thought I would be around 12 or so, maybe 10. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to get 15. Like that's not too bad. I can rock with that. But yeah, I have no idea what it is for the bus. I'm gonna go ahead and calculate it next move I make. But you got your diesel gas, which currently is a bit more expensive than your regular unleaded. So then, in addition to the gas, like just everything dealing with the bus is way more expensive. Like for example, I had to get new tires for the bus, and each tire was either $500 or $600, and like the labor cost, the auto labor is a lot more on the bus as well. So where I don't know exact numbers offhand, but I do recall it, looking at the balance and the breakdown and thinking, man, that's crazy. If I'm gonna drive a vehicle, I should be able to do like a lot of the routine maintenance type stuff. Because I don't want to have to pay for that pay top dollar for that if I can do some of it myself. Granted, some things, I definitely want to take in. For those reasons, and those reasons much outweigh, not being able to stand up in my bus, having to move stuff around to make it more to have things more accessible, and the whole sleeping thing, and having to get dressed, and having to get dressed and everything crouched. Like I could deal with that, and I'm fine with it. But it'll take some. I need a bit more something before I'm at a spot where I can drive the bus comfortably with all those things in mind. Another thing about the bus is it's slow. Like, I don't know if it has a governor on it to manage the speed and make sure it doesn't go too fast, because it is a school bus. I mean, granted, you don't want your school bus, you don't want kids on a school bus going down the highway at 85 miles per hour. And honestly, having driven it, I don't know if I want to be driving 80 miles per hour. So if it is a governor on it, I might keep it on it for a while, at least until I get a bit more comfortable driving it. So it's a lot slower. It's a much slower vehicle. So in terms of getting places, I'd have to break my trip down a bit more, because it's slow and then it's loud. So I don't, the whole quiet thinking time is loud. And if you ever recall being on a school bus, like if you ever rode a school bus and the school bus hit a bump, man, them school buses be bouncing, boy. And I forgot what it was like until I started driving it, and it was bouncing. Granted, that might that might lead to some work that's needed. But when I think about it, and I kind of reflect on having rode school buses in the past, having ridden school buses in the past, they were bouncy. They had a little bounce to them. You hit that bump, or if you get that one who decide not to. I ain't snitching on nobody, but you get the one who decide not to stop at the railroad, and maybe the railroad was inactive, so I give them that. But you get that driver who don't slow down much at the railroad. You hit that boom. Yeah, I remember that. It's not that smooth like Greyhound ride, but it's like a school bus ride. Them school buses built different, I'll tell you that. So when I stack them all against each other, van life is more agile for me. Not just, I have to find different uses for bus life, different uses for my bus, and I'll figure it out. Like, it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yep, it's a marathon, not a sprint.